All right, guys, we are live. It is Sunday night. I hope you're doing well. I hope you had a better weekend than the Patriots did today. Not a good game. Not a good game at all. Although I shouldn't say that. It wasn't a horrible game. It was a new quarterback. Maybe look at chalk it up to that. Anyway, this is the first time that we've ever done a live version of this with guests. I'm really excited about this. I'm looking forward to your comments as well. In order to save time, we've got 7 battleground states that we're really focused in on, right? So what I've done is I've looked at the map, and if you've been watching the Road to 270, as a reminder, we do this every Wednesday, and we'll do it every Wednesday through the election, okay? So right now, if you look, if we can scroll down a little, let me just show you where we stand. If you fill in all of the non-battleground states, we're at 226 for Kamala Harris and 219 for Donald Trump. Now, I've said this before. I just want to be clear on the disclaimer. Does that mean that unequivocally Virginia is going blue? No. Minnesota, New Hampshire, no. But the reality is that the time and money that the campaigns are spending are in these 7 battleground states. And if you want to know where we are, what's going to happen, this is what matters. These 7 battleground states. If Donald Trump has a really good night, could he win Virginia or Minnesota, potentially New Hampshire? Yeah, I think so. There's a lot of states that could come into play if he overperforms. But the reality is that the 7 battleground states that we have been talking about, that the media has been talking about, right? Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Nevada, and then the blue wall states, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, are really where this race comes down to. It's where they're spending their time and their money, and where they have people knocking on doors trying to turn them out. And that's where we're going to spend our time tonight, because in these final 22 days, this is what matters. If you can win these states, and I've said this before, I feel very good about Trump through the Sun Belt, the Rust Belt, those key blue wall states. If he can pull that off, it's a great night for him. And so I want to, I'm going to focus on those tonight so that you have the best understanding. But what makes tonight different is I've talked about trends, I've talked about data, I've talked about voter registration on these Road to 270s that we've done before. But we spent the last couple of weeks reaching out and said, who knows this state best? Who's on the ground? We called them up. They said, would you join us? Because I want to hear from them. Who's got a ground game, where things stand, what trends we're missing, maybe that we're not seeing in the polling. And so we've lined up top guests in every single state, and we're going to go through them and kind of run through them in a very systematic way so that we understand those states and we see things and hear about things that you're not hearing on the national news. If you're joining us tonight, trust me when I tell you, you will not hear or see this anywhere else. Nowhere. This isn't a right or a left thing. This is just no one else is doing this. And so if you are sitting there tonight, text 5 people. If you know you've got buddies or friends or coworkers that are really into politics, text them right now and say, join us on the Road to 270 Live edition. I'll read some of your comments in between states, see what you are concerned about. What am I missing? What should I be asking guests? What do you want to see more of? What makes you feel like you've really understood the state or are informed the way you should be? So I appreciate everybody being with us. I'm looking through some of the comments. I'll stop here and then. By the way, Pocket Watch, thank you for the donation. That's great. Appreciate that. Very kind of you. Hart, thanks for being with us. I see Brenda, some of the Karen. I'm looking quick. I apologize because sometimes you can't see everybody, but I'm going to look and see what you guys are asking, and I'll bring that into the discussion. So if you have a question, I can't say I'm going to get to everyone because, as you can tell, I can't see everything. I'm going to try to bring in the questions and the data that we normally do, but these guests are going to highlight some of the things that we're not necessarily getting told from a day-to-day basis. Anyway, so I'm going to start with Georgia. Normally I start with Arizona. If you've been watching the show, you know what I'm talking about, but sometimes we couldn't get the guests to line up perfectly. And so the first state we're going to cover is Georgia. Chip Lake, I want to bring him into the show. Chip, I want to bring him in. Let's see. Hey, Chip, how are you?
I'm great, Sean. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for joining us. Chip is the principal at Glendale Strategies. He's done a ton of races in Georgia. When I asked around people in Georgia, I said, I need to find somebody who knows Georgia, who understands the trends, whatever. And to a person, they're like, you got to get Chip Lake. So thanks for making time on a Sunday for us. Let me just start with this. Tell me what has changed, what we need to know has changed between 2020 and 2024 when it comes to Georgia.
Well, Sean, first of all, thank you for having me on. And, this state, the state of Georgia has become very important for any candidate that's looking to get, elected president of the United States. We have 16 electoral votes. In 2016, Trump won Georgia by 211,000 votes with about a 4.1 million voter turnout. And then, 4 years later, we were just short, 11,779 votes with a $5 million voter turnout. I think turnout in this cycle, Sean, for Georgia is going to be somewhere in the range of probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 5.6 million. I know every state is different.
Is that more than has been in the past, or is that about par?
No, it's more. I mean, it's more, right? As the state's growing and as we're gaining voters, it's more. It'll be less than the 900,000 jump that we jumped from 16 to 20, right? And so this state is I know every state's different, but momentum nationally carries over to the states. And Georgia's no different, right? I feel like the energy today on the ground here feels a lot closer to where 2016 was at this time, Sean, than 2020. I think Trump is a stronger candidate in 2024 than he was in 2020.
Yeah.
And I think Kamala Harris is a weaker candidate in 2024 than Joe Biden was.
Last time you guys mailed out ballots to everybody, right? Because of COVID, and you're not doing that now.
No, and that's exactly right. And that was a disaster, right? It was a disaster here, and it was problematic for Trump in a lot of different states. I mean, when you look at the data in 2020, election day voters they made up less than 1 of 5 votes cast in the election. Like 19.5% of the people voted on election day in 2020, and that's because 27% of them, Sean, mailed in a ballot or dropped off a ballot at a drop-off location at a police station or a fire station. And so we don't have that this year. Early voting starts in this state on Tuesday. And we have 3 weeks of early voting plus a Saturday sprinkled in there. And we anticipate that over 50% of the electorate will vote early. 52% of the electorate voted in person early in 2020. And then in 2016, that number was 53%. The only difference was the mail-in voters. As we sit here today, 23 days out from a general election, we have had just over 259,000 people request a mail-in absentee ballot. 4 years ago at this time, that number was 1.316 million. And
so
we got hammered.
That's good for us. That's good for us, right?
Great. That is great for us, Sean.
All right, so talk to me about the ground game right now. How does it look when you get out there? What are you seeing on the Trump side versus the Harris side?
Well, obviously, look, I live in West Cobb County. Cobb County used to be, flaming red county, and now it's blue county. And it changed, pretty quickly. I live on the western side of the county, and so we still have that's part of the county that's pretty Republican. Obviously, I'm a 404 Republican primary voter, 505 Republican primary voter. So, and I'm an early voter, and my door's already been knocked on 3 times. By 3 different groups, Sean. And so I feel pretty good.
What groups have knocked on your door?
Oh gosh, I wasn't here for any of the knocks, but I got the door hangers, and I think Unpack was one of them. And Sean, I apologize, I don't have them.
No. I didn't know. It's good to know. Have you? If you had to tell me where do you think the state stands? I mean, when we look at Georgia, you look at the last several polls. Trump up barely, Trump up 5, tie, Trump up 1, Trump up 2, Trump up 3, Trump up 2, tie. I mean, I can't, in the public pollings in Georgia, there's nothing that shows that, I mean, it's tight, but nothing that shows Kamala Harris is there. Where does the race stand in your mind?
Look, I'm a polling junkie. I look every morning at the RCP polling averages for Georgia. I think over the last 3 weeks, they published 9 polls. Kamala Harris has only been ahead of 2 of them, and I really believe they're outliers. That being said, we're if we do have 5.6 million people vote on election day, a 1% margin when you have 5.6 people voting on election day is about 55,000 votes, and so we lost by 11,000 last time. We won by 211,000. The previous time. I think if I had to guess today, and I hate to do that because 3 weeks is an eternity in this business, especially when nobody started early voting. But if you put a gun to my head and said, Chip, you have to give me a prediction, I think Trump wins this state by 50 to 75,000 votes.
But you mentioned where what he did in 2016. That's not a big margin, Chip.
It's not. No, it's not. And but in this state, given what we've been through the last 4 years, anything over 11,000 is going to be really big for us, Sean. With how close it was last time.
So would that trigger a recount, or is that a decisive? If Trump gets a 50,000 vote win in Georgia on election night, is that a big win?
Look, I think it's a big win because we lost this state 4 years ago. So I'd be really pleased with that. It would, if we are going to be in the 5.6 million vote range, it would not trigger a recount. What triggers a recount is anything within 0.5%.
Okay.
The 2 candidates within 0.5, and based upon what we think we're likely to see in turnout, that's probably somewhere between 25 and 30,000 votes. So if he wins with 50,000 votes, I'll be thrilled. I do think there's a possibility the margin could be larger than that, but we can't take anything for granted.
Are we going to know on election night how Georgia goes? What time do you guys close your polls?
Wow. So we close at 7. The reality is, there will be a challenge during the day. There almost always is, about some polling place that opened late or had problems with their machines. And so, and inevitably those problems are going to happen in the big 4 counties, Cobb, DeKalb, Fulton, and Gwinnett. And a judge is going to say, you got to keep those counties open for another hour. I anticipate that happening. It might not happen, but look, even with Trump losing this state, we have 159 counties in this state. Trump won 130 of them, Sean. He won 130 of them. So, where we have, we're not that different than a lot of states. Where we have challenges is in the huge metropolitan counties that they'll dump their early votes right at 7:30 or 8 when the polls close. But then we're going to have to wait a long, long time. And so, look, my fingers are crossed that we'll know on election night, but it very well could be well into the wee hours of the morning or the following day. I hope it's not any longer than that, because if it is, that means that we're likely within a 15,000 vote window, and that's not where we want to be that's not where we want to be this cycle.
Okay, Chip, on election night, what do we want to look for? Where do we want to look to see how we're doing? Is there a county? Is there a town?
So as I mentioned, the big 4 counties in the state, Cobb, Fulton, DeKalb, Gwinnett, they're going to be overwhelmingly Democratic. And so, out of the 5.6 million people that we anticipate are going to vote, about 33 to 35% of the total vote is going to come from those 4 counties. Of the top 10 most populous counties in the state, only 2 of them are Republican, and that's Cherokee County and Forsyth County. And if you're looking at Georgia to see how long of a night it's going to be, I would look at those 2 counties, and I'll tell you why.
So Cherokee and what?
Cherokee County and Forsyth County. Cherokee County is the northwestern part of the metro Atlanta area. For those of you who are familiar with Georgia, it's right at 575 and I-75. And as I said, it's one of the 2 biggest Republican counties that we have in the state.
So if we're crushing it there, we feel good.
Well, we're crushing it, but in 2016, in both Cherokee and Forsyth, Trump won 72% of the vote. In 2020, In 2020, Trump carried both of those counties, but his margin dropped 4 points in Cherokee County. It dropped 6 points in Forsyth County. Donald Trump will be in Forsyth County on Tuesday this week, 2 days from now. He will be recording a town hall with Harris Faulkner that will run on Wednesday. It's no mistake that he is holding that town hall in Forsyth County, because I think if we can be in the high 60s, low 70s, it's going to be a really good night. If we're in the mid 60s, could be a long night.
Okay. Chip, hey, thanks for spending part of your Sunday with us. I really appreciate it. This is super, super helpful information about Georgia, and I hope to check back in with you soon.
Thanks for having me, Sean. I appreciate it.
You bet. All right, guys, before we get to the next state, so I think I feel very good about what Chip just said about Georgia. I'm putting those 16 electoral votes in Chip's, not in Chip's column. Well, Chip put them in the red column based on what he said. I've been saying this for a while. I think Georgia goes red. So that's obviously important there. I want to get to North Carolina next. Before I do, real quick, I just want to thank a longtime sponsor. You guys have heard me talk about Bishop Gold Group before. They have been with me since the beginning. Everybody talks about gold these days and silver and all this kind of stuff. I've not just invested with or talk about Bishop Gold Group, I've invested. I put my money when I said I wanted to get involved in this. If you are interested in gold or precious metals or diversifying your account, go to bishopgoldgroup.com/Sean, bishopgoldgroup.com/Sean. Check them out. They are awesome people. When I say I don't use any product, or I don't have any sponsors that I don't use the product, and Bishop Gold Group has been with me from the beginning. And when I wanted to invest, that's where I went. So this isn't just talk. Bishop Gold Group are the people I went to when I wanted to diversify my account. bishopgoldgroup.com/Sean. All right. I want to move on to North Carolina and bring in Stephen Wiley. He's the executive director of the North Carolina House Republicans. Stephen, thanks for joining us. I appreciate you being with us on a Sunday night. I think we've got some, hold on. We got a little bit of a technical thing. Steven's hopefully going to join us. I think he's reconnecting. We heard that glitch. Guys, North Carolina, as you guys know, I'm really interested in how the storm has affected North Carolina. 16 electoral votes up for grabs there. We've talked about the importance of North Carolina in the past. Trump is doing very, very well. But look at this trend when you see the Real Clear Politics average, right? Look at it. It's not big, right? Trump up one, a tie, Trump up one, Trump up one, Trump up two. Why that's important? It's that he's holding a lead. You're not seeing a public poll from any of these showing Kamala Harris doing well, except for that very bottom one back on September 20th. But everything since then has gone in Trump's direction. This has been a very, very close state. I think, Stephen, we're still getting the glitching. I'm going to try to figure out why that's happening. Hopefully we can figure out the technical aspects of this. But I think it's important when you look at these things, and we've talked about them in the past. 2016, Trump won that race. It was close. I mentioned this when we did the Road to 270 last week. Jill Stein got 130,000 votes, the Green Party candidate. That's 2.74% of the vote. Trump won the state in 2016 with 3.6%, 170. So it wasn't decisive. She had 130,000 votes. He had, but had she not gotten those 130,000 votes, right, there's no question that most of them would have gone to Hillary Clinton. That would have been a much tighter race. Okay. And here's what happened in 2020 when Jill Stein wasn't on the ballot, right? The Green Party was, just so we're clear, they got 12,000 votes, but it wasn't Jill Stein running the campaign that she should. Trump won by 1.3%, right? 74,000 votes. So there's not a direct correlation, but it's pretty close. You can see if you don't have a strong Green Party candidate on there, Trump's margin goes down. So 2020 was very close for Trump, a 1.3% margin of victory, 74,000 votes he won by. That's not a lot, right? And just again, to remind you, in 2016, he won by 174,000 votes. So 100,000 votes. And again, what did Jill Stein get in 2016? 130. As I said, not every vote's going to go directly to the Democrat, but a chunk of them will. And that's what I think pretty much happened. Here's the good news in North Carolina. Jill Stein is on the ballot in North Carolina. That is a positive thing for us, right? Because again, hopefully we face the same dynamic there. RFK is currently on. I think we're headed in the right direction on this. Do we have, I'm trying to check because I can always come back to this if we need to. Steven, how
I'm
are
okay.
you?
Can you hear me now?
There
Great.
we go. That sounds great.
Sean, I worked at the
Sunday.
Apple Store for 5 years before I got in politics. You would think I would know how to work a simple webcam, but apparently not. So,
well, I'm glad you're here. Thanks for being with us. Walk me through. I was just given the history of North Carolina, 2016, 2020. Where are we right now? But before we get to that, actually, let's just talk about the impact of the storm. How has that impacted the ability for North Carolina? And obviously, our thoughts and prayers are with the folks there. Their ability to get the basic necessities that they need to survive, to rebuild. But it's a political show. So I don't mean to be crass, but I just want to get to brass tacks here. How are the people going to be able to vote, especially in Western PA and Western North Carolina? Sorry.
yeah, I mean, you're spot on with that question. I mean, it's a logistical challenge like we've certainly never experienced here in North Carolina that I'm aware of. I mean, there are 27 total counties of the 100 counties in North Carolina that were impacted by Hurricane Helene in pretty significant ways. And in those 27 counties, Republicans traditionally hold a 2-to-1 advantage in presidential election year voting. And so, can those people physically show up to vote? It's
well, and also,
question,
can the government? Is the government, the municipality, going to be in a position to hold that race, to have that election?
We feel confident that they will. Our state legislature just came back in town this past week and passed emergency legislation to enable them to vote. And it was, I think very smart decisions they chose to make as temporary solutions for the affected counties. And that we feel confident that it's not going to impact the security of our elections at all, but it will actually still enable people to be able to exercise their constitutional right.
What has changed between 2020 and now in terms of the voting population there in North Carolina?
Well, the unaffiliated or independent block of voters is now the largest block of voters in North Carolina, but unaffiliated does not necessarily mean undecided.
So what was it before?
It was the Democratic
Party,
and they've been steadily decreasing their overall registration, and Republicans have been steadily increasing theirs, and unaffiliated has just absolutely exploded since that became an option a few decades ago in North Carolina.
Okay, and where are we in the early vote absentee vote process there in North Carolina?
So early voting begins in North Carolina this Thursday. I believe we have almost as many early voting days in North Carolina as any state in the country. And so that will run this Thursday through the Saturday before the general election.
Okay, and how big of a vote is that going to be?
It's pretty substantial. It's when a lot of folks do go to vote. We've already had, I believe, about 40,000 folks return absentee ballots in North Carolina. Okay. We expect a couple million that will vote during early voting period as well. So it is a substantial piece of the pie.
Okay. Where are we with the ground game in North Carolina as far as registration, door knocking? How do you rate it, maybe versus the other side, versus, say, historical operations in the state?
Right. So, I mean, in 2020, Democrats in North Carolina, just as they did in many places, completely abandoned traditional ground game because they were too afraid to leave their houses. And so they pretty much ceded the field of battle to us on the ground in 2020. And to their credit, the one thing that the Democrats are doing well this cycle is they do have a pretty strong ground game in North Carolina, but we've had a strong ground game here. It's a big part of why we've been the closest one state for President Trump the last two general elections. It's just the strength of our overall ground game. And we're still seeing that that's the case now. And, they're starting to try and play catch up with us, and they're doing a pretty good job, but we still feel pretty good about our overall operation.
And how many groups do you think are probably in there? I know that the Trump campaign is working with a lot of outside groups. Is it several? Is it one or two?
Oh, it's several. It's certainly, North Carolina is such a critical state for so many folks. I mean, with the first congressional district in North Carolina up in northeastern North Carolina, arguably the most competitive congressional seat in the country, certainly appears to be the most expensive congressional seat in the country this cycle. And so there's just a ton of groups that are engaged on the ground level.
Okay. Where do you think, maybe I was reading off the public polling here, right? Mm-hmm. Trump +1, Trump +2, Trump +1. Harris was ahead in a poll, but there's only one or two in the last almost month where Harris is as pops, and the rest are either tied or Trump ahead. Where do you think the race stands right now?
I would say Trump's got a slight lead. I mean, that's consistent in North Carolina. He won, I believe, by 1.3%. 1.3% in 2020. He had a slight increase in his vote share in 2020 from 2016. He was at about 0.9% in 2020. We expect him to probably be right around that mark as well. And 1 to 1.5 point victory in North Carolina seems pretty likely for President Trump, and pretty consistent with just how our state has voted at the presidential level for the last few cycles.
Is there a trend or a demographic or an issue that we don't hear about at the national level, maybe outside of the storm, or is it the storm that's going to be central to how North Carolinians vote?
So North Carolina, there's kind of two North Carolinas. There's Central North Carolina. So everything.
You guys already have North and South, and now you're actually going to.
That's right. We just can't get enough of us, right? So there's Central North Carolina, which is really from Charlotte to Raleigh, and that's
okay.
That's what we call the Piedmont. And then there's east of I-95, that's Eastern North Carolina, and west of I-85, that's Western North Carolina. Western North Carolina, that's where Hurricane Helene hit, and then east of 95, that's where the first congressional district is. And so there are a lot of old school voters that are still registered Democrat, but they're the stereotypical conservative Democrat. And so they're still registered Democrat, but they're voting Republican. And it's really difficult for some of these groups, these national groups that do polling, to poll North Carolina and not accurately control for just east of 95. There are people that have been registered Democrats for 30, 40 years that are voting Republican in the general election. And they're some of our most reliable voters in the general election at this point. They just haven't changed their party registration. And so sometimes when you see polling that has Harris maybe up one or tied, or maybe it could go either way. If you look at a group, it's a group that maybe doesn't poll in North Carolina and Eastern North Carolina too often. That usually says you should probably give the Republican about another 1.5 because they just don't capture the nuances of Eastern North Carolina accurately.
Let me ask you a question on election night. This is what I'm asking everybody. What should we look? Tell me about when do your polls close? What should we look at to know how the state's going?
Our polls close at 7:30, and just as in Georgia, there's usually one or two counties where we have issues, and so maybe they'll stay open a little bit later, or results don't start getting tallied until maybe about 8:15 or 8:30. But it's typically around by 8:15 is when results start posting, and so just keeping an eye on how close the early vote total was. Democrats do tend to win to absentee voting. They do fairly well in early voting as well. But if they're not blowing us out in early voting, when those numbers start to come in, that probably is an indication that it's going to be a somewhat good night for Republicans in North Carolina. Okay.
So if we're holding our own, what does that mean? Is that a 60-40, a 70-30, 80-20? What's holding our own mean in early vote in North Carolina?
I mean, it's hard to say because Republican voter preferences have changed so much in the last few years and how they prefer to vote. And then, of course, the RNC and the Trump campaign have done a great job of communicating about getting out to vote and banking their vote with the Bank Their Vote program. So there's maybe not a target number, but it's, if they're still within touching distance is the best way I could.
So if we're at 55-45, we're going to have a good night.
I would say so. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Hey, I appreciate you joining us tonight. Thank you for all getting through the technical difficulties.
Thank you.
It's appreciated. All right, man. We'll check back in with you soon.
All right.
Thank you. All right, guys. I appreciate that. Real quick, we're going to hit Arizona next. Obviously what you just heard tracks with what we've been saying. I've been saying light red. I mean, who cares at this point? For this sake, I think we'll put it red tonight because I think we heard what we need to hear. Now look at where we are now. Democrats are at 226. Republicans at 251. You need 270 to win. This is why it's really good news for Trump, right? 19 at Pennsylvania puts him at 270. He wins right away, or any two other states, and he's there. I mean, that pretty much, I'm sorry, because it's just a math challenge. If you were to win Nevada and Arizona, you would still be a little shy. But you get my point. It's the math's a lot easier for Trump right there, right now, than it is for Harris. All right, I want to talk about Arizona next. Before I do that, though, I just want to tell you guys, I heard so many people who watch the show regularly reach out to me and say, Sean, I bought a Patriot power generator because of you, because of everything that's happened. And plus, I got to be honest with you, it's not just the weather stuff. I've told you guys all before, I have a Patriot power generator in my house. If you are concerned about losing power for a myriad of reasons, natural disasters, weather, electrical grid hit, get a Patriot power generator. Go to 4patriots.com/Spicer, 4patriots.com/Spicer. All of the sponsor links, by the way, are in the show notes in the bio. So if you go in there, you can click on it. You'll get a deal, obviously, for any of the guys that sponsor the show. But I have one. You can use it in your house. It's all powered off a solar panel. No gas needed, no noise. You can come into your house. I love the thing. It's so cool. And I may be getting some for Christmas for some folks. I'm just saying, because some loved ones, don't get excited if you're watching this thinking you're going to get a Patriot power generator from me. But I will get some maybe for some loved ones, because when you realize how important, how many people rely on or are affected by some of these things that happen, you get a little worried that they're not going to have power. And I love having the Patriot power generator in my house. So go to 4patriots.com/Spicer. All right, let's get to Arizona. Obviously, this is a big state. I've always touted this. George Khalaf is the president of data at Orbital. I want to bring in George and talk about where we stand with this state. If he's here, let's bring him in. George, how are you?
Sean?
Good. Thank you for being here. I know you are a data guru. I love this because you guys at Orbital are doing great work, and obviously this is the time when data is king.
Yes.
So I have maintained that of the 7 battleground states, I feel most confident in Arizona. Let's just start off. Am I right or wrong?
You are, from a presidential
Okay,
perspective.
I'll get to your Senate race in a second. Why? Okay, so then let's drill down on the data that you guys. What has changed since 2020 to now that gives you that confidence?
A couple of big changes. One, first and foremost, and this is something very few people are talking about: registration. We, as Republicans, wide in 2020, and now in 2024, and this is as of July. I'm confident we've actually gained a bit more. That 3% is now 6.3%. So we've doubled our registration advantage, which is a big deal. We've never had this happen in a presidential year. Typically, as Republicans, we gain in the midterm, we lose in the presidential. That has not been the case. And these gains are statewide. They're in blue counties, they're in Maricopa County, which is our most populous county, and they're even in rural red counties.
There's a guy named Seth Keshel who has a great Substack. He's been in touch with me. We'll have him on the show. This is what he wrote this week. You will see that all 15 counties are either more Republican in party registration than they were in 2020 or less Democrat. 2 counties, both which ironically have had a long history of voting Republican in federal elections, Navajo and Yuma, formally flipped to the 60% of the state's votes, has moved from a Republican plus 100,884 advantage 40 years ago to a plus 106,732 at the time of the update just 2 days ago. That tracks exactly what you're saying, right?
100%. Maricopa County alone is now at 6.6%. And look, and because Maricopa County represents 60% of the vote, we need to look for President Trump to be equal there, to be winning there slightly. If he's winning there, fairly confident that means that we're going to have a result similar to 2016, where he won the state by a little more than 3%.
Talk to me a little bit about your early vote, your absentee vote. How does it work?
Early voting is a big
and
deal in the state of Arizona. We just started Wednesday. Ballots got mailed out. Most people don't vote early in person. They vote early by mail. We only have about 8,800 ballots in, and Republicans look to have so far a 2,000 ballot advantage. But again, only a handful of ballots are in.
How does that track historically? Is that good or?
We are ahead. We are pacing ahead of 2020. There's been a lot of emphasis on Republicans voting early, as we have historically prior to 2020. And the other big factor to note is that the early vote that's mailed back represents 60% of our vote. So our election is going to be more than halfway done by the time we even get to election day in terms of
about half of the electorate will vote.
Yeah, a bit more. Okay. About 60%.
Talk to me about the ground game. Turning Point USA, headquartered there in Arizona. I know that they partnered Who's in Arizona knocking on doors? How does it compare to what the Dems are doing?
Frankly, I feel everybody's knocking in Arizona, and similar to what's happened in other states in 2020, where the Democrats didn't have a ground game, they do this year. I would say, though, the energy on the ground easily eclipses 2020 or 2022. I have not felt energy like this at the legislative district level from our party structure knocking doors. You go to a door and you find the same flyer 15 different times because so many different groups are dropping off slate tickets, what we call golden tickets, and different things. There's a lot of energy happening.
So you feel good about where that is vis-a-vis last cycle and the cycle before?
Yes. Yeah. I did not feel good going into 2020 in any way, shape, or form. I was more bullish in 2022, but we had some turnout issues that did not materialize as I had expected on election day. I don't think we're going to do it 4 years ago during that COVID election.
Is immigration the biggest issue in North? What kind of amazing Virginia we deal with the effects of immigration, but you guys are in the thick of it, right? I can't believe the race is as close as it is if immigration truly is the issue that we hear in national polls, and that's what always perplexes me about Arizona. Like if I had people coming into my house. In my community illegally causing chaos, costing us money, I'd be like, I'm sorry, I could be the most hardcore leftist, and I'd say something's got to change. Why is it not affecting the vote margin more?
I think it is. Look, Arizona has been trending, as folks know, to be more of a purple state. I think we were as a state in 04, 08, and there's a little talk about immigration ballot measure that I think is actually going to pass, mainly because independents are very frustrated with the border. Of course, Republicans are, and just a small portion of Democrats. And so immigration, hands down, is the number one issue, followed by the economy as a close second. But that's why I think President Trump could win the state by more than the 3.2% he wanted in 2016. There's a chance.
I hope so. I think so. What's a good win for him, like number wise, vote wise?
For sure, if he's in the 4 to 5% range, that means it's going to drag a lot of other races up, which means that we likely have made advances on our state house races, one or other statewide. That would make the Senate race at least competitive. Unfortunately, the Senate race is a bit more dire than the presidential race is currently, but the larger of a margin that President Trump wins, the better that it is for the Republican nominee, Kari Lake.
Robert Cahaley the other day said on the show that he thinks the Kari Lake could be the sleeper Senate race. Why is that? Why is the margin so different for Kari Lake than it is presidentially?
Look, a lot of people are asking that, and I think there is some credence to what Robert's big. In some polls, it shows a 10 to 12% gap between President Trump. So imagine how many people have to be selecting President Trump and then selecting Ruben Gallego. There could not be two people more diametrically opposite of one another policy.
I know. It blows my mind. It's like, hey, fix the border, and then we're going to vote for someone who's going to undermine the policy that we want fixed. Exactly. I didn't get that. Okay. But you think if he wins by 4% or more, that could put Kari Lake?
Yeah, I think for the Senate race, he need to be closer to the 5%, but it's going to be pretty dang close if he's in between 4 and 5%.
Okay. What is a trend or an issue constituency? Is it young men? Is it the gender gap? Like, what's something in Arizona that we're maybe missing at the national level?
So I don't know that we're missing this. I mean, one, we talked about the registration dynamic. I think that's a big deal. And then, of course, the Hispanic vote. Arizona has been trending behind, candidly, the advances that Republicans have made in Texas and in Florida. And so if we meet those same margins in Arizona as we have in Texas along the Rio Grande and parts of Florida, it's going to make Arizona far in general in the Hispanic vote trending a bit more to the right. Those were some of the precincts where President Trump made the most gains on his 2016 margins in 2020, where Hispanic majority precincts.
On election night, what should we be looking for in Arizona? What is the county, the early vote number? What is it that we should say that's a good night for us, or boy, we better be worried?
So our polls close at 7 p.m. We have an hour of dead time. At 8 p.m., those 60% of the vote ballots that I mentioned to you, so any early ballots that were mailed back and received essentially as of Sunday, those are going to get announced. If Republicans statewide, including President Trump, Kerry Lake, if our margin of loss, because we're not going to be likely winning those, is less than 10%, it's between 5 and 10%, 15%, and close the gap to being down only 1% or so. Now we've had a realignment, right? So there are going to be more Republicans voting early than on election day, but that 8 p.m. drop is very important. And then we're going to want to look to the margin of Maricopa County. Republicans want to be even or slightly ahead. And then very important turnout in the rural counties, particularly Yavapai in the north and Pinal in the south. Those are two counties where Republicans are going to win big. The more votes that come in from there, the more votes there are to offset very blue county of Pima County, where Tucson is in.
I appreciate you being with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sean.
Appreciate it. We'll check back in with you soon. All right, guys. I want to just tell you, I am reading on the comments section. I know, or you have told me, shouldn't say I know. I keep hearing about the audio. I know the team is aware of it. We're going to do what we can to adjust for this. I don't know if it's because we're bringing in so many guests, and as you can see, we're doing something we've never done before. No, Jeff, I'm not broadcasting from Ukraine. I see your comment here. No, we're here in Virginia. Like I said, I think we're trying to adapt to some of the technicalities of going live. But we are working on this on the audio. We're aware of the audio issues. So thank you for bringing that up. I told you I would read the comments. So if you just bear with us. I see it. I keep hearing Peggy. I see you. Thank you, Ed. I appreciate you still loving us. Susan, thank you so much. Anyway, if we go back to the map for a second, can I ask you guys, when you're reading this, thanks, Nicole, is the audio better if it's just me right now? Can I look in some of the comments? Or is it when the guest comes in? Hart, I see you right now since you're watching. Can you just tell me, is it the audio when the guest comes in, or is it overall? So I'm waiting to see some of these. Thank you, Alexis. I appreciate you sticking with us. Make audio great again. Thank you, guys. Okay. I guess, yep. All right. So it may just be bringing it in up. No, you're a little better. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. All right. It's when the guest comes in. So we're aware of it. Thanks for the feedback. This is Sunday night, hey, appreciate you being with us and sharing this with folks. I appreciate all the people who are getting on live. Look, the Arizona thing, I know we went out of order because of when the guests come on. Take that Arizona, if we can shade that red, and look at where we are now. When we do this, look at where we are, 262 guys, right? If we take Nevada, and that's going to be our next state that we talk about, but if we take, by the way, can you do me a huge favor? Two things. One, if you can text 5 friends to ask them to join the live stream, that would be awesome. I got the audio. You help me get more people on. It's a little deal we'll make. 2, on my SeanSpicer.com. If you go to SeanSpicer.com, it's a free newsletter that we put out twice a week. We put a lot of the graphs and some of the things that we talk about, or that I can pontificate a little bit more after the show. If you go to that, it's just sign up for the newsletter. That would be so appreciated. SeanSpicer.com. By the way, tomorrow, I know it's Columbus Day, and I still say Columbus Day. It's like they used to say, I say Christmas. I still say Columbus Day. Roger Stone's going to join us at 6 p.m. So he's got a lot to say, and he never disappoints. So he's going to be with us. We got a great lineup coming your way this week, but Roger's going to kick it off tomorrow. So if you're sitting around on Columbus Day, if you have it off, great. If you don't, well, we are at 6 o'clock, so you don't worry about it. Okay, I'm still hearing some stuff. I get it, guys. We're on this. We will keep fighting for the audio. I think that the Harris campaign is just pissed because and the super chat donations, by the way, I keep seeing those. Thank you guys for the super chats. Greatly appreciated. Hold on. Care Bear saying, if I run for office as president of the United States versus Kamala Harris, I truly believe I would win. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know that I want to run. Anyway, Barbara, good to see you. Thanks for being here. Alexis. Yep, Roger will be here. So anyway, please sign up for my newsletter, SeanSpicer.com. And anyway, I want to get to Arizona. Before I do, I want to just thank, as I have, another longtime sponsor. You've heard me talk about Leo Grillo and the folks at Delta Rescue. If you're a dog lover, I mean, not one of those people that eats the pets, you know who I'm talking about, then you'll love the work that Leo Grillo has done at Delta Rescue. I won't go into go to deltarescue.org, check out the videos. You'll know what I'm talking about if you're an animal lover, if you've rescued animals. I please just make a donation if you can. This is a completely it was a mission and a passion of Leo Grillo to help animals, to save abandoned and abused animals. And he's done an amazing job, and he does it without government money. He does it because we support his efforts. So go make a donation. He's got an estate planning kit because he wants to make sure Delta Rescue outlasts him and the great work they do. Download it. If nothing else, just download the estate planning kit, take a look at it, and pray on it, consider it. That's all I'll say on that. Please go to deltarescue.org, check it out. He's such a good guy, and he's doing such great work. That anyway, I appreciate it. Your support for our sponsors. It makes the show able to sustain itself. So thank you for every time we have these great sponsors. When you go check them out, that helps us do what we do. All right, I want to talk about Nevada. Jeremy Hughes is with November Inc. They've been on the ground doing a ton of great work. I want to bring him in and talk about where we are. And I don't want to gamble. Get it on Nevada. Jeremy, how are you?
I'm good, Sean. How are you?
Good. All right. I have been told by Robert Cahaley, my buddy pollster here, to be careful of how enthusiastic I get about Nevada because I see numbers. I get excited. The last poll is Trump up 1 that I saw, but then it's Harris up 1, Harris up 3, Harris up 1, Harris up 7. I don't get a warm fuzzy on Nevada. I'm not saying that we can't win it, but today, where does it stand?
Okay, so I will be here to be the optimistic person about Nevada.
I don't want optimism. I want realism.
I'll give you my real take. So if you're, people looking at the screen there, you have the Real Clear Politics average and you see the Trump plus 6. I will tell you, I don't believe that. I actually do believe the 49% number in the in President Trump's ballot there. But look at the Emerson poll. So that's an interesting case there. It's got Harris plus 1. And I'm not a person that, that says, hey, you got to dive into the crosstabs, but there are a couple things in there that I think are interesting. So it is actually, it's polled a couple points Democrat, in their sample. Well, what we've had in Nevada happen since 2020 is interesting. It went from about a 4.8% Democrat registration advantage, which was about 87,000 votes, to now it is under 18,000. It'll probably be under 15,000 by the time we get to Election Day. And it'll be a 4-point swing since 2020.
So that's good.
They're polling. That's great. Yeah. I mean, in Clark County, which is Las Vegas for the viewers, and the biggest, 70% of the votes in the state, Republicans have had about 1,000 net polling, about 1,000 voter registration advantage in the month of October. We usually trail by 3,000 so far into the month. In 18, 20, and 22, we were net 3,000 in registrations in Clark County for the first 13 days of October. We're plus right now. So, that kind of momentum we haven't had in previous election cycles.
So So the registration, you think, that gives you the optimism that you have, that it's moving in the right direction in the last 4 years.
Yeah. And that Emerson poll also had President Trump up 4 with nonpartisans. So when you look, Republicans have about a 4.5 to 5 point turnout advantage on the Democrats. That's what it was in 2020. That's what it's historically been. So on Election Day, I think we'll have about 15,000 to 20,000 more Republicans that vote in the election than Democrats. So you take that and you take a lead with independents. It's really hard to see how you lose the state with that mix.
Okay, so
it's just a math equation.
So the point that you're making, not just the registration, is you feel good about the trend in the last 23, 22 days.
Yes.
Okay.
Registration has not been this close since registration in Nevada flipped around 2008 with the Democratic caucus with Obama and Hillary. President Obama was a fantastic voter registration, candidate. He got people registered that had never been registered. Registration, they went up 50, 60, up to 100,000 more registrants than Republicans. And so, in 2012, it was about 70,000, it was about 80,000. In 2016, it was about 70. It went back up to about 80 in 2020, and now it's down to under 20 and probably 15 by election day.
Okay. And why? I mean, you got a Republican governor, Lombardo, last cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Is the Harry Reid machine finally dead?
Maybe it's on life support. Let's say. Let's not
Fair
get
enough.
too cocky until we win our presidential here. But something Joe Lombardo
Was that because Joe Lombardo ran a great campaign, or because the Dems are dying, or both?
Yeah, a couple reasons. If you look, Joe Lombardo was able to get 39% of the Hispanic vote, which was the highest a Republican had gotten, who was not named Brian Sandoval, always set him aside, since 2004. Donald Trump is polling at 41% with Hispanic voters. That's going to be about 18% of the electorate. And then that is Mitt Romney, or John McCain, I think, got 27%. Mitt Romney got 30%. So those numbers are moving in our direction as well. And so, you saw Joe Lombardo do that. He got in the 40% with Asian voters. He won nonpartisans by 3 points, according to exit polling. So he was able to, squeak out a victory against an incumbent Democrat, which not a lot of people were able to do in 2022. So I think that just showed the state was moving more Republican. And I do think we get over the hump in this presidential and win it.
Okay.
And that's to me, that's not just partisan bluster. That is, it's just math right. Equation.
Talk to me about early voting and how that plays into your state.
Sure. So mail ballots are dropping. I think pretty much everybody has a mail ballot as of
It's an
today.
all-mail state, right?
So it's basically, if you don't vote, you're just trying not to vote. Everybody gets the mail ballot. There's 2 weeks of early voting. And then on election day, there's precincts. You can vote at any precinct in your county.
So what keeps somebody, if they get the ballot in their mailbox, from voting twice?
So yeah, when you come in, there's a barcode. Obviously, it scans through the registrar, and then it dings you when you go to try to vote. So if you vote in person, it won't accept your mail ballot. If you vote by mail, it won't accept. You're
bringing your ballot in person, is what it comes down to.
You can drop it in the mailbox. Or you could bring it to a voting location.
I see. And
what we saw with it going to all mail, we didn't see a big change in enthusiasm for either party. Republicans voted at about 81%, which is pretty normal, and Democrats were at about 76, 77, which is also pretty normal.
Okay.
So no big changes in terms of turnout percentage, and so I think again this time Republicans will have a turnout advantage, and for the first time in a presidential since 2004, more Republicans will be voting than Democrats.
That's a good thing. I mean,
absolutely.
I get the independent vote. And then what about issues like no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, the car loan tax? I mean, that would seemingly really play into the workers there, especially in Clark County.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Nevada, the number one issue is the economy. The number 2 issue is the economy, and the number 3 issue is the economy. When the rest of the country, for viewers, you got to think about it. It's a tourist economy. So when the rest of the country has an economic downturn, less people are coming to Nevada, less people are spending money, which means, workers suffer. And so all these, proposals that have been put out there by the president and speak directly to those workers.
Okay. Talk to me a little bit about your Senate race there. You've got an incumbent Jackie Rosen versus Captain Sam Brown. It definitely has, she has a lead well outside the margin of victory. Why?
Yeah, Jackie Rosen's a tough campaigner. I did the first Senate race against her, and she's a pretty good candidate. And she raises a ton of money, which is the name of the game. But I think what you'll see is that number is going to be a lot closer than people think. I think there's still, Sam Brown, I think, needs the president to win by a couple points to get over the line. But in that Emerson poll that I just showed, he was leading with independents. And this, the electorate, it's not a exact rule of thumb, but it'll be about a third Republicans, a third Democrats, and a third independents. And so if you can win independents, you're in the ballgame.
Okay. Okay. What should we look for on election night to know how we're doing that? Tell me a little bit about your polls closing and what we should be paying attention to.
So, hopefully if everybody wants to stay up late, you'll probably get results around 11 Eastern, maybe. Clark County is the ball game right now. Democrats used to need to win Clark County by 10 points. I think John Ralston dubbed it the Democrat firewall in the state. They won't win it by 10 points this time, I don't believe. Right now, voter registration sits under I think it's under 7 now in the county. So if the president's losing the county 51-46, he's probably going to win the state. That's when he can still win it, but it gets a little tight. So between 7 and 9, it's tight. Anything under 7, I think he wins.
Okay. And then what else should we pay attention to in terms of issues, trends? Is it Hispanics, union workers? What does that trend look like there that we should pay attention to?
Yeah, Hispanics, I think that's I think New York Times had a poll out today talking about the slippage of Hispanic support across or for Kamala. The Hispanic number, that'll be key. If he can get to 40% support with Hispanics, I think he wins. And then, these voter reg numbers are very interesting. We've not had anything like this. It is a new. It's just new for Republicans. We don't usually win the voter registration battle in the month of October. So I can't see that anything else than a positive.
So Jeremy, I've had this because I've kept this a blue state on my map. You're telling me at least go light red.
I would, if you made me bet today, no puns intended, I think I would put money on President Trump in Nevada. I just think when you look at
I love it. I'm going light. I'm going to put it in the red column tonight because that's what we're trying to do is to get this. I kept it, like I said, I kept it blue because he didn't need it.
Yeah.
But this is kind of cool because if you do this now, by the way, this gets Trump. I mean, if he, the weird thing about Nevada is that he didn't need it. I mean, I'd love to see him build the thing, but you can see we put that into his equation. He gets to 268. He's still too short. We're back at the blue wall, right? So I feel good. I want more red. I want him to have a decisive. He says too big to rig. I want this thing massive.
I was going to say one of the good things about it is if a state like North Carolina and Pennsylvania flip to where, President Trump wins North Carolina and President Trump wins Pennsylvania, but Kamala wins North Carolina, that would cut out her backdoor to getting to 270.
Okay. Well, that's what we want to do. That's the goal, right? So that's what makes me feel better is to know, look, I think that if this is massive and decisive, that these Democrats are screwed because they can't say anything. They can't whine. If it's one state and Pennsylvania goes as late as it did last time, right, there going to be a lot of whining and all that stuff. So it made me feel a lot better on a Sunday night.
Caution folks that at the end, Republicans always kind of poll better in Nevada than they perform. That's been for cycles. But this cycle, to me, the number to watch, if you're digging into polls and reading the crosstabs, like I'm sure a lot of your viewers are, look at the independent number. If we are winning independents, we will win the race.
Okay, I'm going to write that. Look at independent. I mean, I'm just making sure as we go forward and we do this, so look at the independent number because that's the key. Okay, I got that. Hey, Jeremy, thanks for being with us and spending your Sunday night with us. We'll check back in with you soon.
Sounds
you
great.
made me feel better on a Sunday night.
That's what I'm here for.
That's right. Good. All right, guys. That's great, right? You know where I was on this, but this is why we're doing this and why this is different. Like, he's on the ground. He has a ton of experience doing these races. They are data-driven for what he does, and that's the bottom line, right? We can stare at this stuff all the time and pontificate. The guys who are on the ground who understand the registration numbers, the early vote numbers, blah, 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 the historical context, this is what makes us different on the show, and this is why we will be the key place to turn to in the last 22 days. I want to get to Wisconsin. Before I do that, just a real quick, you guys, if you watched Friday's show, you saw my friend Tina Anderson. I've been trying to get healthier slowly, okay? Like, don't get too excited. And I get really into these, to the MAHA movement, to the forever chemicals, to the stuff that's in food, the dyes, all the stuff that I keep learning about because I hear about it and start going down rabbit holes in this. And I told Tina at one point when we first met, I take a probiotic, and she's like, you do realize not all probiotics matter because some of them don't even get to where they're supposed to. They don't make it through the stomach to the intestine. She came up with these Just Thrive probiotics. I started taking just these, and then I found out they made gummies, and who doesn't want to take a gummy? I mean, maybe not everyone, but I certainly do because it tastes like candy. So you can save 20% on a 90-day bottle of Just Thrive, the probiotic. They've got the Just Calm. They're amazing. All of their products. She was on the show Friday. We had a great conversation about wellness and what they do. But here's my 2 cents. I'm not a healthcare professional by any means, but don't take a probiotic if it's not going to help you. And the Just Thrive products are so much better than everything else because they're natural. They've got all of the microbiome stuff that does what it's supposed to do with the gut and gives you, so much depends on a healthy gut. And this is the kind of stuff that will get you a healthy gut. So if you go to justthrivehealth.com and use promo code Spicer, you can get 20% off a 90-day bottle. I'm telling you, I love it. I feel better. Anyway, and again, it's one more step towards getting healthy. I've been reading the audio issues. I hope this is better. You saw me lean over, check some boxes. This is why I love you guys, because I get all the feedback. So, yeah, by the way, Jackie, the 13 keys, guys, give me a break. This is what matters. Some guy just saying there are 13 keys. The data matters. The registration numbers matter. Those aren't keys. Those are reality. So thank you, guys. Anyway, I'm just trying to take a look at your stuff. Anyway, I hopefully fixed some of the audio issues that you brought up. I want to get on to our Wisconsin, the first of our blue wall states. Megan Novak is a senior advisor for Americans for Prosperity Action in Wisconsin. She's on the ground. These are one of the groups when we ask people who's knocking on doors, these are the guys, right? They're out there knocking on doors. Megan, I want to, they're going to fix that for a second. You guys have heard me talk about how difficult it is to poll Wisconsin, which is why we wanted to get someone on the ground. Megan is there. She knows what it takes. Hold on, I'm getting some... Megan, can you hear me? I'm getting a little feedback. Okay. We'll keep working on this audio because I'm getting it back in my ear right now. I don't want to... I know with all the comments here, I certainly don't want to get you guys more upset on a Sunday night. Thank you for tuning in. This state is truly a battleground state, right? The polls, if you look at these averages, Trump up 1, Harris up 2, Trump up 2, Harris up 4, Harris up 2. This is a battleground state. I like Wisconsin's trends. I like how it's turned out, right? And when you look at where it's been historically, I feel very good. 2016, Trump squeaked out a win there by 22,000 votes. But Jill Stein had 31,000 votes, the Green Party candidate. We've talked about her role in the past. Joe Biden, he in 2020 notched a 20,000 win. But again, the Green Party wasn't on the ballot there. This is going to be a difference. She is back on the ballot in Wisconsin. That's why I feel better about that. You saw that Ron Johnson win last cycle, and everybody had Ron Johnson for dead. He ran a spectacular campaign. He's a great candidate. He had a great message. And I think similarly, this is where Donald Trump is right now, with a solid message. And this is why I feel good about, how he's going to do in that state. I feel very, very good about how Wisconsin is trending. Now, this is truly, these 3 states, by the way, as we head into Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania to wrap this all out, these blue wall states, Trump needs to win 1. Can we pull up the map again? As I said, look at the trend there, but let's go back to where we are in the map. We're too short. He's at 268, guys. Look at this right now. Wisconsin 10, that puts him over the top. Michigan 15 puts him over the top. All he needs to do is win 1, and he's president. He's back in the White House. That's it. And I think that that's important to note. So we're going to talk about this. We bring in Megan. Here we go, about what she's seeing on the ground. Megan, good to see you. Thanks for joining us on a Sunday night. Tell me where we are, where the trend is, because every pollster, bar none, that I talk to in Wisconsin, that polls in Wisconsin, says it's tough. So what are you seeing on the ground?
On the ground right now is momentum. If you think back to 2020, if you remember, Joe Biden won our state, but by less than 1 percentage. So any pollster or any Politico who tells you they know what's going to happen in Wisconsin, they've never been to our state. They actually don't know. But what we're hearing on the ground, we've knocked over 500,000 doors talking to swing voters, economy. They care about the border. And most importantly, Democrats do not have suburban women locked up like they think they do.
Okay, so you've got big metropolitan areas, Madison, Milwaukee. Those have got to be where the Democrats really want to do well. Are they trying to turn out, maximize their vote there? How are they doing in those kind of areas where I think they have?
They have just started getting active in the last week. It's the first time we've actually seen them out door knocking. Yes,
So after Hillary Clinton blew it in 2016 for not going to Wisconsin, these guys are doing it all over again.
They're relying on rallies and surrogate after surrogate coming into the state, but actual door-to-door conversations that we know because we've tested it actually win elections. They haven't been doing it.
So talk to me about the early vote registration, all the good data stuff. What's happening in Wisconsin, and what do we need to be looking for?
So you have to remember, Wisconsin is not a party registration state, and you can register up to the day of the election when you walk into the polls. And so it's a little bit different than some of the other states you've talked to. But where we're looking at for absentee ballots right now, we are way below 2020 numbers for requested absentee ballots, and we're even slightly below 2022 numbers, which is, I think, is a little bit more reliable and realistic, just because we weren't quite in a pandemic in 2022, and they're especially below even in the blue areas. Because we don't have party registration, you kind of have to rely on the demographics of the counties.
So that to me, if you're not the Dems who do very well in early vote, absentee vote, if there's not as many requests coming in, that seemingly, just big picture, would benefit us.
Yeah, I think the enthusiasm on the ground is definitely favoring Republicans right now. When you go door to door, like when I was just out this last week, and even when I got people who were supporting Tammy Baldwin, the Democrat incumbent for U.S. Senate, they were like,
yep.
Meh, yeah, I'm going to vote for her. And I was like, oh, why? Oh, because I'm a Democrat and I always have been. Then you go to talk to conservative and swing independent voters, and they're like, yeah, I'm supporting Eric Hovde because I can't afford to feed my kids right now. And they're super passionate about the opportunity to actually get our country back on track, which is the enthusiasm gap is real right now in Wisconsin.
So I mentioned last time you point out, Ron Johnson, nobody saw him, but the guy ran a great campaign. He's got a great message, and he's got a business background, right? So he's not some political hack that's just, he has a good sense of what's working. He pulls this thing out. How's Eric Hovde doing in that race against Tammy Baldwin?
He is surging at the right time. You watch I said a little bit earlier, polls aren't accurate in Wisconsin, but we can feel it on the ground too. It is a neck and neck race right now. And the Democrats have been running that same campaign strategy they ran against Ron Johnson in 22 and 2016, and it didn't work then. And they have spent millions of dollars before Eric Hovde even got in the race trying to define him. And it's still neck and neck at this point. And I think that the trends are in our favor right now for Hovde to pull this out, because people are fed up with Tammy Baldwin's not even anywhere to be found in our state. She's not doing events. She's not doing interviews. You don't see her in the news. She is nowhere to be found. Her first ad out of the gate had Trump in the background because she's trying to run as a moderate blue dog Democrat, but she's not. She's a part of the Progressive Party.
So she's had this meeting leak the other day where she's saying, hey, I'm in trouble, or more specifically, Kamala Harris is in trouble. And that tracks exactly what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they're legitimately scared, which is why we're finally seeing them out on doors.
But it's not a money issue, is it? They got plenty of money.
No. They have all the money in the world.
Are the airways just flooded with ads? Because if you're not seeing them on the ground, they have plenty of money. What are they doing?
They are all over the airwaves, Sean. Let me tell you, I'm a huge Packers fan. It is tough to even watch a Packers game at this point because it is ad after ad.
I would argue it's tough to watch a Packers game anytime, but I don't think you want to hear that.
I'll come back after the election and we can talk the Packers.
Oh, listen, I'm a Patriots fan, and there's going to be no smack talking this year for me. And I work for Reince Priebus, and so obviously I'm well aware of the Packers, and I've been indoctrinated. But anyway, I think that's amazing because that's what gives me hope. I have been saying that I feel good about Wisconsin. Eric Hovde, I've been feeling good about Trump because I get the sense the trend is moving in the right direction, and historically things break for us at the end.
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, no matter what, it's going to be 30,000 votes or less that's going to decide these races at the top of the ticket in Wisconsin.
30,000.
That's my bet.
Okay. So what if we're looking on election night? I've asked everybody this. What do I want to be looking at in Wisconsin to say, are we having a good night or not?
Couple key things. Everyone will point to what we call the WOW counties. They're Waukesha,
Wow.
Waukesha, Ozaukee, and Washington. They're the suburban counties right outside of Milwaukee. They have historically been Republican strongholds, but since 2016 have been trending away from Democrats. Away from Republicans, excuse me, and towards Democrats. Republicans should still hold them, but they have to drive up the margins there to be able to compete with the blue strongholds of Milwaukee and Dane counties, which is where the state capital is.
So
now.
it's Waukesha. Give me again.
Ozaukee.
You guys can't you just have counties called like
and Washington?
Greene? And all right, Washington. I can see.
Okay. So those are the key
So
ones.
if Republicans don't run up the score in those three counties, Waukesha, Washington, and Ozaukee, we got a problem.
We got a problem. The other counties I'm looking at are Kenosha and Racine County, where have been trending red, but there's a strong blue collar union vote there. I think it's trending in our favor, but that's something I'll be watching closely. And then the last thing you got to watch in Wisconsin, we have hyper localized elections. And what that means is a lot of our local governments do what's called central count for all of the absentee ballots. So even when the polls close at 8 p.m., absentee ballots get shipped to central count for a lot of the big places like the city of Milwaukee, city of Green Bay, city of Kenosha, and they count them all at once and report them in one big dump, sometimes after midnight. So that is where Wisconsin is probably going to be called a little bit later, because central count absentee ballots could be the make or break difference when it comes to a 30,000 vote difference race.
So when we see Wisconsin with a massive influx of votes at 11 or 12 o'clock, that's normal.
Yes.
Okay. But we won't see anything before. It'll all come at once.
Yep. For each of the central counts. So there'll be one for Milwaukee, one for Green Bay.
Okay, but what about if you live, I'm just like in a Western county? Do they all do that, or is it just those areas?
Only about 15 to 18 do it, and then the rest of them report with their local polling place.
Got it. Okay. All right, Megan. Thanks to you and for everyone at Americans for Prosperity Action. I know you guys have been, as you said, 500,000 doors. How long has that happened over?
We started the first week of April, and we have been the only ground game in town for a long time. So it's nice to see some other groups on our side of the aisle out as well now too.
Well, I don't want too many on the other side of the aisle. I want more to help you.
Or on our side, though. We want someone on our side helping out.
All right. Megan Novak, Senior Advisor for Americans for Prosperity Action in Wisconsin. Thanks for joining us on a Sunday night, and appreciate all your hard work out there.
Thanks, Sean.
No problem. All right, guys. Michigan is next on my list. We've got two. Obviously, as I said before, I felt good about that. I'm going to keep that one light red because I feel good about it. So I want to just tell you as we do that and get ready to talk about Wisconsin, I've told you this before, when the Democrats are in office, they do bad things. And they hired a ton of IRS agents. And so the IRS agents are now sending out these things called pay-up notices. If you get a pay-up notice from the IRS, just like, doesn't matter, anyone from the government, DOJ, it doesn't matter. When they come, they got the full resources of the federal government. Get some professional help. Do not try to go it alone, whether it's DOJ, the IRS, whatever. In the area of tax, I talked to the folks at Tax Network USA, tnusa.com, full name Sean Spicer, tnusa.com/Sean Spicer. Go talk to the best people in the business. They've recovered over $1 billion for their clients. These guys are really good at what they do, and they know how to defend you in the most professional way, because the IRS is going to come at you. They don't care. This is not like a return on investment where they're like, oh, well, you only owe $5,000 and it's your business. Or they don't care. They'll go through your life, and the folks at Tax Network USA know how to help you. One last group that I want to tell you about before I get into to Michigan. It's our next one on the list. You guys know I was talking about wellness a little bit. I go out running all the time. It's not running. It's more like a fast walk or a jog. I have loved my Gravity Defier shoes. These things, and I was going to show you them tonight because it's like I wear them every day now. and I'm starting to do some damage to the sole. I don't mean that like damage, but you know what I mean. I've been using them every day to go for walks, a little bit of a jog. If you have hip, knee issues, I have both. It is a game changer, and I'm telling you, I love these things because it's cushion, it absorbs stuff. They've got these custom orthotics. I love this. It's got Verso shock technology. It's the kind of stuff that they make trampolines on. If you go to gdefy.com, gdefy.com, you can use code SPICER30 and get $30 off your $150 order. I'm telling you, if you're a walker, or a jogger, or just even going to the gym. I wear one pair to go to the gym, and I wear one pair to go for a jog walk. But use code SPICER30 at gdefy.com, Gravity Defier. It's a total game changer of a shoe, and I need the shock absorber. Anyway, all right, I want to get to the state of Michigan. Again, in Michigan, we've got 15 electoral votes. This is a state that Trump carried in 2016. It was razor thin. You can see right there, again, we're at 278. I told you, whether it's Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania, he does this and he's over the top. I want to bring in Tori Sachs. Tori is a Michigan and political policy strategist. She has a ton of experience in the state, knows it well, has run a ton of campaigns there, and is able to give us some tremendous insight into a state that is going to be critical, and I think is prime for the taking, right? 2016, Trump won by 10,700 votes. And Biden won. We're getting a little bit of feedback on hearing myself right now, so we're going to try to take her out, bring her back in. Biden won the state by 154,000 votes in 2020. As I said, Trump barely pulling this thing out, 10,716. But I feel very good. By the way, RFK is still on the ballot in Wisconsin and in Michigan. That is, the Dems fought hard to keep him on the ballot. They wanted to kick him off everywhere else. We're going to kick him out of the party, and now suddenly they care about keeping him on the ballot. But Jill Stein is also on the ballot there. That's important to note. Yeah, Hart, I heard the echo chamber. We're working on this, and we'll bring her back in as soon as we got that. So thank you guys for the heads up on. Yeah, and I'm reading this thing right now. A couple of you guys, Care Bear, saying that I truly believe that the 270 map will show like this November 5th. You know, the funny thing is, when you do this map with a Democrat and you go through it the way that we are tonight and ask them, tell me where you disagree, they can't right now. And I don't think they're trying. They are looking at this and saying, okay, good case. I'm not saying that every one of these states is going to be 100% dark red. You heard the margins that we're talking about when we bring in these people that know these states better than anybody, right? They're agreeing. They're like, hey, this is what 30,000 vote margin, 50,000 vote margin. That's tight. So things could change in the next 22 days. But the reality is that it's moving in the Trump direction. By the way, I mentioned this earlier. I can't hit this enough. Sign up for that newsletter. Go to SeanSpicer.com. Obviously, you can follow me on Twitter at Sean Spicer as well. Roger Stone tomorrow on the show. I'm so excited to talk to Roger, by the way. We got 2 more states to get to, Michigan and Pennsylvania, but I can't not remind you, 6 o'clock tomorrow, 7 o'clock on the 1st, but 6 o'clock on the YouTube channel for the premiere. We'll talk to Roger Stone. There's so much I want to get this guy's take on. By the way, a brand new Trump movie came out that tries to show Trump in a really bad light, and I want to ask Roger Stone about this because these guys are literally throwing the kitchen sink at this guy. And there's so much happening out. You saw Timmy out there trying to pretend that he's a big hunter and can load a gun. Failure. J.D. Vance schooling Martha Raddatz today on ABC. So much to talk about tomorrow on the 6 o'clock show with Roger that we're going to get to it. I want to bring in now Tori to talk about where we are with Michigan. Tori, thanks for joining us on a Sunday night.
Thanks for having me, Sean. It was a great Lions victory tonight.
Oh, geez. You know what? Oh, all right. Well, this has not been a good couple weeks for the Patriots of New England. Tori, tell me where we are. What has changed? I noted how close this thing has been in 2016, 2020. Jill Stein still on the ballot there, which is a good thing for us. Let me just give you what I've been saying. I think that the auto workers, young black males outside of Detroit, the Arab community, all help Trump. But you're on the ground. You've done this before a lot. You're really good at what you do. What am I missing about where Michigan is and how close will it be or not?
Sean, you're exactly right. I mean, we're seeing huge marginal pickups for President Trump with auto workers. So you'll see those folks in Macomb County, the areas surrounding Detroit downriver, also happen to be areas that we have big state house races in. The most that I think I've ever seen invested in a state house races in Michigan in my lifetime. And so those are all auto worker areas surrounding Metro Detroit. And then we saw last week, just a few days ago, that some of the Middle Eastern groups are endorsing Jill Stein. So not only are they not going to vote for Kamala Harris, but, it was like that never Harris or sit out movement is now getting behind Jill Stein. And I think that's going to make, quite the margin on election day. Like you said, in 2016, President Trump won Michigan by 10,000 votes. I mean, he could win Michigan by 15,000 votes this time. It's going to be that close.
So I've been told, well, Jill Stein's not the Jill Stein of 2016. What are you guys seeing on the ground? I mean, you just mentioned these groups. How important is that?
It's very important. And we also have, I think it's a big deal that RFK Jr. is endorsing President Trump. We see a lot of young people being excited to join President Trump this time. I was talking to someone the other day at soccer. I'm a soccer mom. I have 4 young kids. And I was talking to somebody on the sideline, and they said, it's the first time, and a young 30s parent, they said, it's the first time in my lifetime that it's okay to, say you're going to vote for a Republican because of people like Elon Musk, like Tulsi Gabbard, all these people that I will say, the online millennials have been following for the past decade are all behind President Trump. And we're seeing that, in the polls, and then also, on the sidelines at soccer on Saturday mornings.
It's funny you say that. I was walking down Old Town Alexandria today, and I saw someone walk down the sidewalk with a MAGA hat on. And this, you just made me think of this. But it's like, for the first time, Republicans are like, yeah, I'm proud to be a Republican. I'm not going to hide it anymore. And I think just so we're clear, because a lot of people have been, but in places like Detroit and Old Town Alexandria, where it's probably not safe to do that, people are saying, yeah, I'm proud to wear a MAGA hat. I'm proud to say that I'm voting for Trump. I'm proud to be voting Republican.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first time, since I've been going to my kids' sports that a parent, in suburban, this was in Metro Detroit, someone just brought that up to me and said, yeah, it's going to be okay this time. A lot of people are, they might not be talking about it. They might not be wearing MAGA hats, but, they're following Elon, they're following Tulsi, they care about what their kids eat. They're really into this Make America Healthy thing again. And this is what the suburban moms are talking about.
I was talking to Ashley Hayek of America First Works earlier. She had given us some great statistics earlier the week on the panel discussion. And I asked her, I said, what are you guys doing in Michigan? She said, we have a team of 12 Muslim Arabic speaking door knockers who've been knocking since late June. She said in 2020, 276,000 supportive and persuadable stayed home in Michigan. 100,000 voted non-committed in the presidential primary, and that same movement has refused to endorse Harris, which could be devastating for the left. What do you make of those numbers?
That's exactly right. I mean, that 100,000 could decide this election very easily. Michigan is going to be extremely close. I think what the ground game that we've seen from that group that you just talked about is fantastic. There's other groups like the Michigan Freedom Fund. I'm not going to give away their number. I'll tell you, it'll blow you away at the end of this, how many doors they've knocked in these battlegrounds.
Give it. Let's go.
I can't do that. I mean, I think they're going to be well over 1 million doors by the end of this election. So between that, the Save America PAC, which I'm sure you've talked about, which is, Elon's PAC, is doing a lot of things on the ground here. So, I mean, the momentum's there, the infrastructure's working, people are seeing what's happening. And when we talk about auto workers, we talk about the EV issue. This is huge. People are losing their jobs right now in Michigan, right? So for the past 4 years,
when we hear about it, that is I mean, like, it's not just a national talking point. You're saying that this is like the soccer mom conversation about how many people are losing their jobs because of the policies of this administration.
Right now, so we've been saying this warning. People like Congressman John James have been giving this warning for the last couple of years that these EV mandates from the Biden administration would cost us jobs. Just last week, we had 2,400 jobs are leaving the Stellantis plant in Macomb County, Michigan, and Sterling Heights. Those jobs are going to Mexico. Those jobs are not coming back, right? And so we keep seeing this over and over again. The layoffs are happening. It's going to get worse. This is a huge issue. People are feeling it on the ground. It's not a warning anymore. It's unfortunately happening now.
Okay. When we talk about Michigan, I've always said that I think this Mike Rogers, Alyssa Slotkin race is my sleeper race. That Mike Rogers is going to pull it out and win. What are your thoughts on the Senate race, where it stands and where it ends up?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's definitely coming on late. You know, he's been trailing down 4 or 5 points through the summer and then into the fall. Huge SLF money just got announced, I think last week.
Senate Leadership Fund.
Yeah.
That's the outside super PAC, right?
Yep. And so they
Okay.
just came into Michigan about a week ago, earlier this month, beginning of October. And now they're on par. So the spending, the ads had been just slocking. Now the ads are even. You're seeing both. And I think that's really spells trouble for Slotkin, because in all of her previous races, she really hasn't had anybody talking about her record. You know, she signed these NDAs with a Chinese company to get Michigan taxpayer money, truly, to get Michigan taxpayer money for an electric vehicle battery plant on the west side of Michigan. You know, these are things that people are thinking they're very shady. They don't like it. They don't like what they're seeing, frankly, out of Gretchen Whitmer right now either. You know, she was very popular.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, Sean, the person with the most to win if Kamala Harris loses is Governor Gretchen Whitmer.
Interesting. By the way, I just want to make sure it was the numbers that I said it earlier with Ashley are America First Works. They're out there. I mean, Ashley's been out there personally doing this work. So America First Works has been crushing it, and that's so helpful to the overall cause. Talk to me about early vote, absentee vote. What are we seeing, and what should we be looking at?
So, I mean, I'll tell you, Detroit right now is returning more ballots than anyone else, which
That's not good, though, right?
traditionally not good. I think we'll see what happens. I think there are going to be a lot of black male voters who cross over for Trump who haven't in the past. But we're seeing absentee vote is very much down from the year 2020. Obviously, it was a pandemic. We also had that our, activist Secretary of State had mailed everyone an absentee ballot request in 2020. So those numbers, that's not happening now. So those numbers are down. We also have a lot of other new voting rules going into effect this time that we've never had in Michigan. So we're going to have early in-person voting for the first time ever in Michigan. So all municipalities have to have at least 9 days of early in-person voting. Some people are doing 2 weeks. Some people are doing 16 days. It varies
Wait. So
by
everyone can
municipality.
do a different amount?
Yes.
That's nuts.
Yes.
So one
Well,
part
have
of the
you
state
seen
you
who runs our state?
Yeah, that's true. But that is unbelievable. So in one part of the state you can get 14 days, in one part you get 9.
Yes, you have to get at least 9.
That's crazy.
So that is something, especially in the future, that we should look into expanding. Hopefully we can
But is
start
that
to
are
take things
Republicans
back.
ready for this?
I think they're as ready as they can be, as ready as anybody can be, because it's the first time that it's been happening. But that's why you see a lot of these groups going around and doing what they're doing with the early vote, because they know it is coming, especially with the in-person. And I think Republicans, frankly, are going to be more willing to vote early in person than they are in mail it back.
Okay.
So I do think that's good. There are a lot of, I think somebody put out the list earlier today of who's returning ballots. There are a lot of Republican areas who are already returning ballots. So, I would say those are probably, Sean, our 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 4 presidential primary voters. We really have to work now to get the people who are one voters. And I think that's why you've seen President Trump and J.D. Vance in Michigan so much these past couple weeks. And I heard they're coming back again this week. There's a lot of excitement for them. They're hitting the areas they need to hit, all of which is very important.
Yeah, I reminded people. I went out. I got my little sticker here. I voted early in Alexandria, but we've talked about this with all these folks that are helping, that it saves them money if you go in person and cast that vote. So guys, if you're in Michigan or anywhere else, go in person, cast that vote, save the money, because Tori's right. We got to get to the low propensity voters. Tori, on election night, tell me, when do your polls close? Where should I look to say, how are we doing?
Yeah, so polls in most of the state, all of the counties that are downstate.
You can vote whenever you want. We can close it whenever we want.
Most of the state ends at 8 o'clock. We do have 4 counties in the UP that are an hour behind Eastern time.
So if you live in the Upper Peninsula, it's a different time zone. Is that right?
Over near Wisconsin, yeah.
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 It's Wisconsin people.
But
All right.
but the majority of the state will close at 8 o'clock. I think we are seeing, again, I told you there's a lot of new rules going into effect this year. Some municipalities are even going to start counting the absentee ballots early. So we know that Detroit has said, Ann Arbor has said that they're going to start counting their absentee ballots starting on October 28th. They're not going to release any of those numbers, but hopefully that will help with how late the totals come in. You know, I've been doing this a long time.
But also, but if I see
waiting
a number
for
early in Detroit or Ann Arbor, I shouldn't freak out.
correct. Well, I think they'll be reporting. They should be reporting the absentee ballots hopefully at a normal time when that happens. I would look to, if I was an outsider and I was looking at Michigan, what we'll be monitoring is what's going to happen in Macomb County and what's going to happen in Kent County. So Macomb County is just north of Detroit. That's where a majority of the union auto workers live. Who work.
Oh.
And then Kent County is where Grand Rapids is. So in 2016, President Trump won Kent County by 3 points, and in 2020 lost by about 5.5.
Okay.
So
all right,
that is a really
so
important.
that's where we got to look. Kent County and Macomb.
Macomb.
See, I'm okay.
No,
you guys
okay.
in Nevada all get very. And I apologize, but then
okay.
again, you got to.
Specifically, I'd say, Sean, MI10, right? We had, that's John James's congressional district. That was the third closest race for Congress last year. That race was decided by 1,600 votes. It's going to be just as close this year. And so I would say so goes MI10. So yes, his race is extremely close. He has the same opponent. They're spending a lot of money against him. He's obviously spending a lot of money and has a lot of help too. But that is a really big. We used to call those the Reagan Democrats, right? That's the birthplace of the Reagan Democrat was Macomb County.
All right, John James, Michigan 10, Macomb County, Kent County. Tori Sachs, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. All right, guys, we are headed to Pennsylvania. This is it. I feel good about Michigan. You've heard me say it, so I'm staying with light green. Light green. My gosh, what is that? Ireland, St. Patrick's Day or something. We're going light red in Michigan. Trump solidly. I told you it was 306 before, but I think we might exceed that now because we put Nevada in that column. Two things I want to tell you before we get to Pennsylvania, because we have a special guest for us in Pennsylvania. One, if you run a company or are in charge of the finances, this is a ramp card. It's a Visa card. It even says Visa right there, right? This is an expense card, a corporate card that you can give your employees. So you have a handful, it doesn't matter. But if you run a company and you're the person that does the expenses of the finances, go to ramp.com and check it out, because I'm telling you, let me just see what the code here for ramp is, because ramp.com/Spicer, ramp.com/Spicer. And by the way, if you want $250 in your pocket, you get it literally in your pocket for going to ramp.com/Spicer and checking it out. So that makes it worth your time right now. But this thing will change your life in terms of efficiency, save your company money. It allows you to tell your employees what you can and can't do, what you can buy, how much, the limits. It simplifies everything. It takes like 15 minutes to set up. If you're the person that runs your company, the finances, go to ramp.com/Spicer and you won't forget. We're going to get to Pennsylvania. Before we do it, I want to tell you about my last sponsor that's so great for this show. And I saved them for last because if you're getting ready to go to bed, do what I do. Use the Beam Dream Powder. I'm telling you, I had a buddy of mine send me the other day, hey, I can't fall asleep. Do you really use this? Does it work? And I'm like a charm. One scoop, I put the Beam in, put it in the microwave, and I'm telling you guys, you will have a great night's sleep. I wake up refreshed. I love this stuff. Professionals use it. Athletes use it. You get 40% off Beam's Dream Powder. It's got everything: magnesium, melatonin, reishi, apigen, all the stuff you need. It's a natural, amazing tasting formula. I'm not kidding. That's the cinnamon. I also have the brownie. All of them are amazing, except I'm telling you, once you take it, give yourself 30 minutes and you're going to be, it's like the natural ambient. Like you'll be ready to go to sleep. You fall asleep, stay asleep. Go to shopbeam.com, shopbeam.com/Spicer. Thank me later. I'll just say that, right? Thank me later. Go to shopbeam.com and you will love it. All right, we are at Pennsylvania, and I wanted to bring in a special guest who knows Pennsylvania, works Pennsylvania, gets results on Pennsylvania. Mr. Scott Presler, come on in and tell me how we're doing. Oh, I bet you just got in too. You look like you've been busting your hump all Sunday.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me back, Sean. I'm in Bucks County, Pennsylvania.
All right. I keep hearing on TV that that's one of those counties that I got to look for. I talk about your work and what you've done. You've been in Lucerne County. I love your videos. If you don't follow Scott, it's like you can hear the momentum in Scott's videos by watching what he's done in Lucerne County, Fayette County, all over, the trend moving in our direction. Scott, tell me where we are in Pennsylvania right now and why we should be optimistic.
Yes, sir. So in 2020, Democrats had an advantage of 650,000 more Ds than R, and that election was ultimately decided by 80,000 votes. So now in 2024, the Democrat advantage has been narrowed, Sean, down to 325,000. And furthermore, if you take out inactive voters, people that haven't voted for a while, that number is actually 160,000. So to anybody watching right now, Pennsylvania is 100% in play. It's 100% winnable. Now, couple the voter registration data with the fact that Democrats are down 430,000 mail-in ballot applications from where they were 4 years ago at the same moment in time. So this isn't conjecture. This isn't opinion. These are real statistics. And I think that we're in a better position today to win PA than we were in 2020 and we were in 2016.
Well, I mean, based on what you're saying and the way that voter registration is moving and the numbers that you're talking about, that's hundreds of thousands. And you take out Scranton Joe, right? And there's a little bit of, I got to admit, there's got to be a little hometown boy there because he says it every time he talks. You add in flip-flop fracking Kamala in there. That's all plays in Trump's benefit, right?
Well, and I have to tell you, it's not just that, the fact that Kamala has no ties to Pennsylvania and she will ban fracking as she said she would do. But I was in Bucks County today, Sean, for a Day of Unity event. We had the Jewish community, we had libertarians, but most importantly, we had RFK Jr. supporters that are endorsing President Trump in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I've seen polling that he was taking Kennedy anywhere from 3 to 5%. We win over those RFK Jr. supporters, we will win Pennsylvania. And furthermore, I was just watching your segment on Michigan just prior to this, and Dr. Jill Stein is on the ballot in Pennsylvania as well. So in 2020, Dr. Jill Stein was not on the ballot. And you had the Libertarian on the ballot in that election, but this Libertarian candidate with the LP party is a mask supporting, child genitalia cutting supporting candidate that is so far away from what it means to be a libertarian. I really think we are set up in the best way possible to win. Now, to the listeners at home, that doesn't mean that you can be complacent. That doesn't mean that you can't continue to register voters and knock on doors and get out the vote. But we truly have an excellent chance of winning Pennsylvania this November.
I got to believe it. I mean, like I said, I get inspired watching your videos on social media when you have a group of people, you're talking about how many doors, how many people you registered. Walk us through right now, early vote and absentee vote. Where does it stand in Pennsylvania?
Well, this is probably one of the most important things you'll see on your show. So, I'll provide context that if you look at the mail-in ballot returns, it's actually not great right now. But it's because the majority of Democrat counties sent out their ballots first. The Republican counties are now finally sending out their ballots, which is why there's a discrepancy. But everybody in Pennsylvania, this is very important. You can vote early in person in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I want you to write down this website. It's vote.pa/early. vote.pa/early. And beginning this Tuesday, October 15th, in all 67 counties, you at home can vote in-person, on-demand, mail-in ballot. And if any of the county boards of elections tell you that there's no in-person voting, please, I want you to pull out your phone. I want you to record the conversation and you send it to me, because that is election interference. If they tell you there's no early in-person voting, you are going to go to your board of election and request an in-person, on-demand, mail-in ballot. And that's something that we can do to lock in those votes, as opposed to doing a mail-in ballot in a drop box or a mail-in ballot in a mailbox. You can do it in person, Sean.
Okay. We put it up on the screen right there, guys, for you, what Scott's saying. Vote.pa/early, right? Got it right there on the thing, exactly what Scott's saying. But the key, and I think this is important, what Scott's telling you. Listen, I used to, at the RNC, I'd get people to call me and said, I saw something, da-da-da-da, and it was like, okay, well, did you write any of this down? Did this happen? They say, well, no, but, you know, I say, it's like if a crime occurs and you call the cops and they say, well, what does the guy look like? I don't know. Well, blah, 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 I don't know. If you don't have the information, it doesn't do any good. So what Scott's saying to you is if something goes wrong, record the conversation, get names so that we can follow up with it. But just saying I had a problem doesn't help the cause, doesn't help President Trump. You have to give people like Scott the ability to come in and triage it and fix it by saying, okay, this is the person, this is what they said, and we can document it. And that's important leading up to the election and on election day. If you see something, it's got to be documented. It just can't be hearsay.
And if I may, Sean, to expand upon that for a second, we've had a lot of election integrity wins. We called out the Luzerne County Board of Elections for having a backlog of thousands of voter registrations. And because we called it out, because we put so much public pressure, they've had to hire more staff. They've had to every Monday put out a press release about how many backlog there are. And I've even spoken at 2 of those meetings to put continued
I saw that.
pressure.
Yeah, I saw your, like I said, I saw the video. You called them on the carpet. You also called out when the state board of, or Secretary of State, Secretary of the Commonwealth, tried to prevent, we're down for maintenance on the day that President Trump's going to be here for the Butler County. And I said to Chairman Wiley of the RNC, I saw that you called it out. Laura Trump saw what you did. She got the lawyers involved. But you're right. I got to ask you one last question, Scott. It was funny because when I first had you on the show, basically, the RNC wasn't returning your calls. Then I'm watching President Trump's Butler rally, and you're on stage with the President of the United States, talking to people, getting them fired up. And I think your speech was, hey, if you're a construction worker, if you're a trucker, that 71% of you don't do that. And I was just listening, and I'm sorry I can't remember all of it because I was thinking to myself how quick things changed. You were having trouble getting your work recognized, and suddenly it went from that to a new leadership that said, Scott Presler, get up on stage and start, singing to the choir.
Well, I want to thank Laura Trump, our RNC co-chair. Every time that I text her, and yes, I have the ability to text our RNC co-chair. That's how communicative she is with the grassroots, the patriots. Every election integrity issue, she has texted me back immediately. She has flagged the GOP legal, and she has taken charge to rectify those things. Thank you, Laura. And I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to speak on stage. I never in my wildest dreams thought I would be speaking at the most historic Pennsylvania rally, and I was in shorts.
By the way, happy birthday, Laura Trump. It was her birthday yesterday. So I had a texting chain with her thanking her, and then they had this big boat parade down in Florida today. I'll talk to Roger Stone about that tomorrow on the show. But anyway, Scott, thanks for everything you're doing. I think this is going to be tight all around. And when you win on the margins, you look back and go, you know what? Scott Presler was there on Sundays and Saturdays and Tuesdays, knocking on doors, getting people motivated. So I appreciate your hard work, what you're doing. And I'm looking forward to a big Pennsylvania win, coming out largely based on a lot of the work you and a lot of others are doing out there.
Thank you. And one last thing, Sean, real quick. The last day to register to vote, Pennsylvania, is October 21st. The last day, the deadline is the 21st. Go to vote.pa.gov right now and register to vote at your current
And what about
address.
early voting? What is that?
The early voting is going through the end of October, but the last day to request a mail-in ballot, Sean, is on October 29th. Don't wait until the 29th, because then your mail-in ballot might be sent out in November. But
Right.
that deadline of the 21st, please register to vote.
Okay. Thanks for everything you're doing, Scott. I appreciate you joining us. All right.
Bye.
In Pennsylvania, there's also a big Senate race. There's a lot of work that's being done there by Americans for Prosperity Action. Emily Greene is a senior advisor for Americans for Prosperity Action in Pennsylvania. I want to bring her in to figure out where we are with that Senate race. and get a sense of what's going on. Obviously, that race features incumbent Bob Casey versus Dave McCormick. Dave McCormick, ran last cycle. West Point graduate, great guy, running a solid campaign. So many of the ads that we've talked about over the cycle, have been Dave McCormick ads. He's running a great campaign, great messaging. Emily, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Sean, doing great. I'm coming to you from Montgomery County. Thanks so much for having me this evening.
You bet. So tell me, how's the Senate race there? I feel good. I feel like this is one where, again, all these blue wall states, I feel like our guys are cresting at the right time, moving in the right direction.
We're feeling really great here on the ground in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is not taking this lightly, being the most important state in the nation. What the anticipation of our electoral returns is really turning out to be the Super Bowl of American politics. And, certainly there is a surrogate here on the ground from both sides of the aisle every single day in Pennsylvania. So voters know there is an election on November 5th. They are very in tune with that. What we're doing here on the ground through Americans for Prosperity Action is talking with that critical swing voter, because that's what's going to make or break the race here in PA.
So what have you guys, give me some sense of like how many doors you've knocked on, what you guys are doing, in terms of activity.
So Americans for Prosperity Action here in Pennsylvania has knocked over 800,000 swing doors since April 1st. It is the largest ground game in the nation. We are super proud of that number because we know how important it is to get in front of voters right on their doorsteps. So not to get too partisan here, Sean, but as I was watching the Eagles game earlier today, as I was watching that game, oh, it was a good one for us and a good day for the Steelers as well. But as I was watching the game, every single commercial was a political commercial. I mean, Pennsylvanians know that there is a big race here on November 5th, but there's so many narratives that are being painted on both sides of the aisle, but particularly for Dave McCormick, they are trying to paint him as not a Pennsylvanian. And that is so far from the truth. We're able to correct the record in real time when we're standing on doorsteps, talking with folks who may or may not turn out on November 5th, who haven't made up their minds. That critical, undecided voter is what's going to make or break this race. Because if you recall in 2022, Dr. Oz only lost to now Senator John Fetterman by about 260 some votes. So this is going to be close. Polling is tightening up, and it's because we're talking with voters on their doorsteps because they're ignoring those TV commercials.
Yeah, and by the way, I mean, you got Dave McCormick, a West Point grad, successful businessman. I mean, this is the kind of guy that you want in Congress right now with all the issues that we had. Knows how to protect the country, knows how to make the country prosperous, get people back to work, knows the effects of government regulations. This, as opposed to Bob Casey, career politician. I mean, to me, this is what you want, right? The issues are the economy, the border. I think national security is a big issue. Dave McCormick's got the perfect experience and background that I would want for my senator. What do you think issue-wise is driving people? You mentioned the ads. What is the issue maybe outside of the economy, or is that it?
The economy is really driving swing voters to turn their votes to Dave McCormick. I mean, I'll tell you, look, I am a lifelong Pennsylvanian, and Bob Casey has been elected to a statewide office for as long as I've been alive. Yet folks probably walking down the street could not identify Bob Casey if they were to see him. And truly, when we're talking with voters on their doorsteps, we're telling them he endorsed and voted for $5.5 trillion in new spending since 2021 when the Biden-Harris administration took office. He's complicit in all of that. And he is the reason why prices are so high, why folks are having to make critical trade-offs in their budget. I'll tell you a quick story. I was in Allegheny County last week we're home to Pittsburgh. And I was talking with a voter who said, look, I used to have 3 square meals a day. And then come 2022, that changed to 2 meals. Now I'm down to 1 meal and a snack. What? I'm on a fixed income. I can't even afford to put food on my table. This is so beyond partisanship. This is about ensuring that we are able to, allow Pennsylvanians to put food on their tables, to feed their families. That's what this election's coming down to.
Emily, last cycle, you speak of Allegheny County. That the Dems drove a massive vote out of Allegheny County. Everybody looks to Philadelphia and the suburbs there. Allegheny County was huge for them. So where you mentioned this voter that you were interacting with, what do I want to look for on election night in Pennsylvania to know how we're doing, and either side for that matter?
Well, in Allegheny County, as you just said, it is critical. Of course, the Philadelphia collar counties where I live, Montgomery County, those are incredibly important counties. But in Allegheny, home to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, that is a county where the county executive just introduced an idea to have a 40-some% tax hike on residents across the county. So they're waking up to the fact that.
But is that what I want to look at on
change.
election night? If I want to know how we're doing, do I want to look at Allegheny County? Do I want to look at Bucks? Where do I want to look to say, how are we doing?
The first place I'm looking is Allegheny County to see if Dave McCormick is able to get over 40% of the vote. I'll tell you, Senator Pat Toomey in 2016 got 40% of the vote in Allegheny County. Oz in 2022 was only able to get 35%. Next, if we're going across the map, I'm looking at Bucks County. Bucks County is the quintessential swing county. You have union influence in Lower Bucks. As you travel up the county, it's horse farms galore, but it really will be a bellwether county. Senator Pat Toomey won this in 2016 by 51%. Oz lost to Fetterman, only getting about 45% of the vote. So I'm looking at those two counties first.
Okay. And then what do we expect on election night? I know that the Secretary of State's already, or the Secretary of the Commonwealth has already sort of tried to, don't expect, because we don't work past 6 in Pennsylvania or whatever. Last time we had with they like to say a red mirage, and we did really well on election day, and then they found all these votes. Like, what do we need to be careful of? Or what do we need to win by on election day? Or how is that going to go on election night?
Well, as you know, Pennsylvania, they will not start counting the mail-in ballots until the day of. I know that is different in other key states across the nation. In Pennsylvania, they can start counting those the morning of election day. But really, I'm going to look at what turnout looks like in Allegheny, Bucks, Montgomery. One other important county to look at as well is Northampton County, which is home to PA-17. PA-7. There is a critical congressional race there. AFP Action endorsed Ryan McKenzie.
Give me a location. Where we got the map up. Where are we looking?
Yes. So just north of Bucks County is Northampton County. So this is going to be home to the Lehigh Valley.
Okay.
AFP Action
so that's
endorsed
that
Ryan McKenzie
eastern, central, east. Right. Okay. You can see the cursor if you're watching online right here. That's where that is, just above Bucks. The cursor is going to go back down in a second, but right there, you can't. It's the eastern central most place. All right.
Yes. So Ryan McKenzie is taking on Congresswoman Susan Wild. They are in a very, very close race. So we have employed our grassroots team to knock lots of doors across that county. But that's important because that county has correctly predicted the presidential race all but 3 times since Harding in 1920. So when you're talking bellwethers in Pennsylvania, that's an important one there too.
Okay. Emily, thank you for joining us on Sunday night. Congratulations on your wins. Hopefully you guys win the big prize. They'll go Republican on election night. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. All right, guys. I'm looking. I want to look through the questions right now. We got a couple minutes I want to take. Thank you all for joining us. I'm seeing so many of Karen, Oot, everybody. You guys, it's awesome how many of you are here tonight. I would ask you again, even if people weren't in the live, to share this with them. You saw this. We went through every one of these battleground states. If we go back to the map real quick, can we put that up? I mean, look, and you see how Pennsylvania is. But if we put Pennsylvania as light red, look at what this does to President Trump. I think it gets us to 312. Yeah, because I had us at 306. You take the Nevada 6 that I've been reluctant to go with, but you heard the case that got made tonight for Nevada. That gets him at 312. You need 270 to win. As I said earlier, look at this is a great place to be if you're on Team Trump. Hey, I said 306. If I'm wrong and it's 312, I'll be wrong about that. I have no problem being like, oh, hey, you were underestimated Trump's win. If we can pull that Nevada out, and I think we had a good case tonight, That's a 312 vote margin, right? Or win. That would be a 42 electoral count win. Trump won with 306 in 2016. So this would be, just above that. And I think this would be great because here's the thing. I don't want to hear the Democrats whine. Like if it's one state, oh, well, blah, 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 and they're going to go to court and all these people who've complained about Republicans are suddenly going to go nuts about this. If we can win with that kind of number that you just saw, they can't say a word. And that gives Trump a real mandate, I think, going into the new Congress with talking about all the things, the border and the economy and everything that's going to happen. I'm just taking a look at some of the questions or thoughts. Let me know what you guys thought of this. Wednesday, we always do Road to 270. A lot of this information will feed the update. And things change, right? I saw a bunch of polls come out today. I didn't want to waste time going through the public polling. I'll talk a little bit about that with Roger Stone tomorrow. But we're building this up for the next edition of Road to 270 every Wednesday between now and the election. We do the morning meeting every morning at 9. I know a lot of you join us for that. Roger Stone is tomorrow. The newsletter comes out twice a week. It's free if you go to SeanSpicer.com. So just sign up. You can always follow me on Twitter too, because I still call it Twitter. I don't care. I know it's X, but I'm not going to call it X. I'm going to call it Twitter. And so morning meeting at 9. Tomorrow at 6 is Roger Stone's Substack, the newsletter on Substack, SeanSpicer.com. Dems will always whine afterwards, Samuel said. I agree. You're probably right. Can we get Trump back on the Breakfast Club? That would shock voters. Yeah. Well, he's already talked. There was a big announcement. I don't know if it was legit or not, that he's going to do Joe Rogan. And I think that's going to be huge. You saw him out with a bunch of the group. The Nelk boys flew home with him last night on the plan. My former colleague and friend Dan Scavino posting that. Oh, by the way, Lonnie's saying don't forget to buy your probiotics. Yes, I know. Tina Anderson, these are the probiotics. JustThrive.com, JustThriveHealth.com/Spicer. Get those. It's a great deal, by the way. When you see what good stuff costs, it's not cheap. You get that promo code. Let me just double check that for you because Lonnie asked. I don't want to undermine it. Yeah, it's JustThriveHealth.com, promo code Spicer. You get 20% off a 90-day bottle. Not a bad deal there, Lonnie. Just so you know. But I think Trump's going to keep doing these shows that go at young men, in particular. Drive it up. Yeah, I can't wait for Joe and Trump. We'll definitely talk about that. Anyway, it's getting to be 9 o'clock. And I don't know, Alexis, when we should get that. I assume you mean the Ann Seltzer poll in Iowa. I don't know when we'll get the last one. And I'm just reading Marta's thing. Sean, Islamic Council on American Islamic Studies poll. Stein hitting Dearborn hard. Stein 40%, Trump 18 Harris. Yeah, if Jill Stein does really well in Michigan, I think Trump, that's such a huge thing. Constantine, thank you very much. I appreciate you watching tonight. Hopefully we continue to share this with folks. Again, you hear a lot of stuff on the news about this poll and that poll. Tonight, we went through all 7 battleground states with people that are on the ground in these states that know the states really well. You saw Scott Presler joining us tonight from Pennsylvania, some of this, but this is what's going to make the difference about being knowledgeable. When do the polls close? When should we know? What do we look at for election night? Those are all critical things. Yeah, I know. Dylan's saying as long as we get 270, I don't care. I do, because I think a solid win. I'm with you. At the end of the day, do I really care how much? Not really. 270, but they will fight us tooth and nail. And I don't want to take the chance. I want a decisive win. And I agree with you. I get it. I just want to win, but I do want a decisive win. Thank you guys for joining us. I really love the support, and thank you to all of our sponsors that give us the ability to do the show. You see where the map stands now, 226 to 312. The cool part is you peel back two of those states, give them to her. He still wins. We are in such a better position. And haven't been there in 2016, by the way, guys. We weren't there in 2016. We were shocked, by Michigan. 10,703 votes. You don't expect that one. Now we have much better data. We've got many of these groups out there knocking on the doors. As Anabi says, make it too big to rig. Vote, vote, vote. Absolutely. Guys, if I can tell you one more thing, go cast that early vote. Bank your vote. Get it done. Save the campaign money. You heard what Tory Sachs said in Michigan. They need to focus on the low propensity voters. Once they know that the committed voters, the 3 out of 4s, the 4 out of 4s, they consider the high propensity voters, have cast their ballot, they can focus on the next level down, the 204, the 104, the just registered. You are doing the campaign a huge service financially. If you've never donated, that's the way you can donate. If you go cast your ballot, that's right, Carter. If you do that, your vote, you're basically giving them a donation because they're not spending money on you. This is so helpful. Hart, thank you for your participation as always. Love having you here. Karen, James, Robert, Holly, Rick, thank you guys. Appreciate it all. Barbara, always love having you here. But so important. Go cast that ballot when you can. Bank it. All right, guys. I appreciate everybody joining us tomorrow. We got a great show headed your way tomorrow with Roger Stone at 6 o'clock. The morning meeting tomorrow will be on 9 a.m. here on the YouTube channel. Have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.